So we know we can split the text into lines of text using split lines, and then we can take each line and split that into words, things that are both is a word or not a word. And so now I think that we're really down to thinking about how, given any one word, we're going to scramble that. And we've already talked a little bit about the beginning that we're not going to scramble words that are 3 characters or shorter, because there's nothing to scramble. So we have to have 4 characters or more. We're going to have to use a string slice to get the characters that are not the first and the last. So all the stuff in the middle. We've talked about string slices and list slices before. And then we're going to use this a function called random shuffle to randomly mix up those letters. And then we're going to have to put the word back together by combining the first, the middle, and the last parts. So a lot of string manipulation stuff that we've played around with. And so how are we going to make that happen? And in the spirit of test-driven development, I want you to think about how we can first write a test for this. So I'm going to actually go over here to the solution so I can grab this code here, this def test scramble. And I'm going to pop that here into my program. And the reason is because I want to also create a function called scramble. And so that's going to look like this. It's going to take some word and it's going to scramble a word, just one. We're going to think about how to scramble one word rather than try to think about how to scramble all the words. Once we have a function that can handle any one word, we can apply that to all the words that we see. And that's just a pattern that I really want to drive home through this book, is that you think about solving the smallest possible problem and then building up from there. So right now we'll just say pass. I think that I've introduced this now a couple times. I'm just creating kind of a stub of a function where it doesn't do anything at all. Pass literally says do nothing at all, and then therefore, since I haven't said return anything, it's going to return none, which is the default value that's returned by Python if you don't have an explicit return in your function. The reason why this is there is so that I can say pytest -xv on now my scrambler function, scrambler program. And what's going to happen here is that pytest is going to go in and run any function that starts with test underscore. I'm going to close this, make the screen a little bigger. And it's going to see, let's see, here, it is running the test scramble and it's failing because it's saying when I scramble the letter A, I should get back the letter A because there's nothing to scramble. And what's happening right now is that when it's calling scramble with A is being passed in as the word, and nothing is being returned. In fact, none is being returned. So it's asserting that, it's trying to assert that none, which is what it gets back from scramble A, is equal to A. And that's not true, so we get an assertion error. So the testing fails. And so what we see here by looking at these tests is that A, B, C, those should all return exactly what they are because they're 3 characters or shorter. But then as we get longer strings, we should get these scrambled versions back. And so your question may be, well, how do I know that, well, you know, this doesn't look different from that? How do I know it was scrambled? Well, and then here, this was scrambled into this value. Well, how did I know that? Well, I'll confess that in this particular instance, I actually had to write the function first, figure out what it would return, given a particular seed value, and then I encode that as the test going forward. So what I'm telling you in this instance is that you're going to have to basically reverse engineer this function to satisfy this test. When you're writing your own functions that do things like this, you may have to actually go write the function first, figure out what it does, and then you encode that in your test suite. At least you're saying that at this point in time when I wrote this function, this is the way I understood it to work. And then if in the future you somehow change that function and it's no longer doing what you used to think it should do, then something's at odds. Either the test needs to change or the function is wrong. So you'll have to figure that out. It's just part of the art of testing. In this case, I did write the function first and then I wrote the test. But here I'm giving you the test and we're going to figure out how to write the function. So let's think about like inside of our scramble function, we're going to get a word such as worry, which should be, this should be scrambled because it's long enough. So worry. How do I get the first character? Well, we already know it's not word 1 because that's actually the letter O. Unfortunately, we start counting at 0. So word 0 is the first character. We know that. We also know that we can get the last character by calling a negative index, so -1. The other way to do that would have to be, let's see, I think we can say length of word, right? Length of word -1 because we are 1 based. So -1 is a lot easier than trying to figure out what exactly is the index of the last one in a positive number. So that's how we can get the first and last letters. So how do we get all the bits in between? Well, we can do that by a list slice. We can start at 1, and then we want to go to the last index, but not including. So if we left off that, we would get from the second character all the way to the end. And so we don't want the last character, so we'll say -1. And we have to remember that's not inclusive, so therefore this is how we can get the middle of the word. Now, we'd like to shuffle that, and let's see, I don't think I've imported the random module, so let me do that. And there's a function that I want to use called random shuffle. So let's look at the help and see how that works. And so it says it wants X and then it has this random none. So shuffle list X in place and return none. This is incredibly important that you really understand what this means. Just like list sort and list reverse, the list itself is going to be sorted in place and nothing will be returned, which is different from functions like sorted and reversed, where those don't modify their lists and they return the sorted or reversed lists as the return value. So we need to understand how our function is going to work so that we don't end up erasing our data. For instance, here if I set x equal to 1, 2, 3, and then I say, oh, I want the shuffled version to be the result of random shuffle x. What just happened was that x got shuffled in place, the return value is none, and so now shuffled is equal to none. And x has been shuffled, but shuffled does not have the shuffled version. Very, very important that you understand this. So if I do this, so this might be a way that you might try to do this. If I say random shuffle, and I say shuffle word from 1 to -1, what's going to happen is that it blows up because it's trying to modify word, those characters in place, and that's not going to be possible because we're trying to mutate a string. If I were to try to assign that value to something called, let me say, let's call this middle. If I try to say, okay, well, I'll just copy that and look at middle, it's that string, and I can say, okay, well, I can shuffle that, right? Let me shuffle the middle. No, because middle is a string, and therefore it's immutable. It cannot be, it would just be like if we tried to say middle at 0 is equal to x. It's not possible. String does not support assignment. So we can't do that. How could we fix this? Well, it wants a list. So let's give it a list. Instead of making middle to be a string, let's just say list. And now what is middle? It's a list of characters. So each one of those is a string. It's a one character string. But now it's a list. Lists are mutable. So now if I call random shuffle middle, nothing is returned and middle has been shuffled. Now I need to put this back together using the first character of the word. So that was word 0. And then plus this middle bit now needs to be joined into a string. So I can use that, the empty string.join method on middle. And then I need the last character of word, which is at -1. And now we have a shuffled word. So you should be able to use those ideas to write your version of the shuffle function that, actually, is that what I called it? Of the scramble function. You should be able to write your version of the scramble function that satisfies these tests. What I want you to do is not move forward until you can run PyTest on the scrambler program and have it run the test_scramble function. And when that works, then you should be able to move forward and think about how you can apply this function that you completely and utterly understand and have tested. How can you apply that to all the words that you're going to get from splitting the text on that regular expression? Don't move forward until you can pass that test. Okay,